I'd like to ask two questions. Mr. Wolfowitz, you said in your prepared statement that our goal should be to drain the swamp of terrorists and that the primary method of doing so was going to be to win on the offensive, that is, to go after the terrorists, not play defense. In a previous hearing, we had high officials in the intelligence community, when asked the question, what was the biggest mistake that we made in the 1990s relative to Al-Qaeda, answer the failure to aggressively assault the training camps of Al-Qaeda, which at one time were producing on average 100 terrorists per week, who then were subsequently placed around the world, including, as we know, in the United States. In light of that, I've been surprised that our current war on terrorism has not, at least apparently, targeted the training camps where the current generation of, or the next generation of terrorists, and I'm speaking specifically the training camps outside of Afghanistan, are producing. The next group that will likely be equipped to attack us. Is that based on intelligence that the community is getting to the effect that the training camps are not as significant today as they were 4 or 5 years ago? Or what is the reason why in a campaign on the offensive to drain the swamps, the place that the alligators are being prepared are not being targeted?
So I'm not sure if we can get into this in an open session. I'm not sure which training camps you're referring to.
Primarily the ones, as I say, outside of Afghanistan, and I will not mention the specific countries, although they're fairly well known.
There are countries like Yemen and Georgia where we know there are active terrorists, not just training camps. Training camps, yes, but also people plotting and doing plots. And we are working actively in different ways with both those governments to get actionable intelligence, number one, and number two, to improve their capabilities to go after these problems. But if we have actionable intelligence and they're not prepared to act, then we'll have to figure out ourselves. I mean, in the cases that I'm aware of, we are aware that there are problems, but we don't have the kind of precision that told us about Tarnak farms or specific things in Afghanistan. And just one last point. I don't want to get in an argument with the people who talked to you earlier about training camps, but it does seem to me that even worse than the training camps was the training that took place here in the United States and the planning that took place in Germany. The donkeys, if we can call them that took over the airplanes may have been trained in Afghanistan. The pilots were clearly trained elsewhere.
The second question, in your opening statement, Mr. Wolfowitz, you commented about the importance of us not being seduced by the status quo, the way things have been, and to be prepared to think creatively as to the nature of the threat and the nature of our vulnerability. Based on what has happened at September the 11th and before and since, what recommendations would you have in terms of personnel policy, organizational policies, as to how we can inject a greater degree of creativity within our intelligence agencies?
Well, some of the things that we've done already are in fact enumerated in my statement. I do think organizationally from within the Department of Defense, we believe very strongly that having this single focal point for intelligence, the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, would contribute enormously to dealing with two problems. One is breaking down compartmentation within the department, and number two, giving the Director of Central Intelligence a focal point that he can go to solve problems when they occur. With respect to the issue about culture, I think there are a lot of things that come to mind, but I can't think of anything that would be more important than finding ways to reward those lone voices that do dissent, to to perhaps send back intelligence estimates that have no footnotes in them, and to praise the ones that come forward that indicate with some clarity what we know and what we don't know and what we may not even be aware that we don't know.